Now we've got something. There we go. Oh, yeah, I figured. I got to watch you all the time. So, prayer requests and praises while I'm getting the computers and everything all signed up. Number one, Pat's sister passed away this past week. Our first reports, because they found her, I'm going to talk kind of brutally, so they found her in the pool. And so the first thought was, and she didn't swim, lived in California. So the first thought was she had drowned, but they found no water in her lungs. So the thought is now that she had either a stroke or a heart attack and passed out, fell in the pool. Pat and Gary are leaving Wednesday to go out there for the services. The boys decided to have a service after Thanksgiving. And so how long are you guys going to be gone? Coming back Sunday, so they won't be here next week. The second notice is we've had some struggles with first service. First service is really low count anyway because it's mass and social distancing and all that good stuff. So we tend to not have a big crowd there. I've been waiting for this whole COVID thing to go away so we can actually make it a full-fledged first service. This morning was the first Sunday, though, that we've had no one show up. And so we've had those really low numbers during holiday weekends. So I just thought the thing to do is to go ahead and just do one service on holiday weekends. So we'll do one service on Easter's. We'll do one service the weekend after Thanksgiving. We'll do one service the end of December. And let me get a consensus from you guys now, since I am planning on, planning next year's sermons right now. Christmas and New Year's in 2022 falls on Sunday. So how do you guys feel about a Sunday service but here's the problem with a Sunday service on Christmas Day. No matter which time of day you choose, it's going to be a challenge for somebody. For people with children, it becomes really big problem because guess what you're doing? You're opening up your presents and everything like that on Sunday morning. If you do it in the afternoon, a lot of people are in the middle of planning their meal. You can do it at night, so you can have a night service, and that can be special. But in my experience, guess what people are doing? So Christmas Day is a challenge. What we can do next year is make the big service on Christmas Eve. That we have a big service at night, and that's where we do, that's where we do everything on Christmas Eve. How do you feel about this next year, a Christmas Eve service, bigger than a candlelight service? Typically this year we're going to have a candlelight service, and it'll be less than an hour. It'll be it'll be intimate. We'll have candles. We'll do the whole 9 yards. Music, mostly music, but it's vastly different than a full-fledged church service. Yeah, Gary, you had your hand up. Thumbs up. How many people are thumbs up for Christmas Eve? Makes a whole lot. So that you just made December for next year. It's so much easier for me. Also, let's see. Bart, I was so happy to see that Gina went and got Bart. She also had Sharon over for Thanksgiving. Most of us don't know Bart anymore, and it's a real challenge to go get him. You've got to go all the way to Pleasant Hill and then take him back home. I was thankful that they did that. He is less and less Bart. Still has a smile. He's not there. He's kind of faking it till he makes it. He's just really not there. So for those who know him and you haven't visited him yet, please go visit before he's just totally gone. He is, I got word this week, I was talking to one of his brother-in-laws. He did have a chance to talk to his brother, which is good. That was an unanswered question. I didn't know whether Bart's brother was still alive, but Bart got a chance to talk to his brother on the phone. But Bart's also getting more combative. He took a swing at one of the staff because he's getting frustrated about staying there. So please, if you know Bart, if you remember Bart, just carve out a little bit of time at the holiday season to go and see him. I'm also thankful for all of you who helped out Mona. She's not telling me to thank you. I'm thanking you because I know what a sacrifice that was. One person alone put over 300 miles on their vehicle just helping her out. So, I mean, a lot of sacrifice on a lot of people's parts, to go and I kept hearing, there's so much stuff. There's so much stuff. There's so much. Yeah, so much stuff. So thank you for helping her out, and as a minister, I think you guys are cool for doing that. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, yeah. What else? I know there's other prayer. Yes, sir. Yeah, Gary and I don't know if both of them are feeling badly this morning. Gary's not feeling up to stuff, and so they won't be in this morning. So be in prayer for them. Thursday, men's Bible study, men's and women's Bible studies are back up. This is the book that we're going to use for the Thursday men's Bible study. It's Quest 52. It's a follow-up to Core 52 that we did as a church. This one, I'm kind of rolling it out in smaller groups. It's same thing, it's 52 lessons, but this one specifically just looks at the life of Jesus. So you concentrate on the passages about Jesus. And the topics, just to let you know again, it's can God use me for big things? Does God play favorites? How do you endure pain? It answers questions like that along the line. So I think it'll be an interesting study. What else? Yes, ma'am. Wow, another one. Yeah, what are you going to do? I mean, your quiver is getting so full. Number 10. Wow, that is a full quiver. Wow. Yeah, really, yeah. Well, we can say that because I think everybody's been fixed or something. Yeah, can we say that? Yeah. Yeah. No. Well, the fixed portion had to do with it's the way you address your pets. You know that you take them to get fixed. Yeah. So they won't have any more. Yeah, kids and people having an abundance of kids, it can be kind of fun in the church. Gary, who is our youth minister in Florida, and he's a big-time YouTube star now. He speaks to teachers groups all across the country. He gets like 1 million views in all his videos. He's just really, really goofy. But they were on like number 3, I think, and so the elders call him into the office and they sit him down, and it was when his wife got pregnant with number 3, We said, we weren't sure if you knew what caused this. So we wanted to make sure that you knew what causes it. And he was an easy one to tease. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Talk about a full quiver. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think this one was an oops. So, yeah. Although I'm not sure how many oops you can have. Yeah. So, what else? What other prayer requests and praises? Actually, just this whole line of talk right now. Consider the title for today's lesson. What if I make the wrong decision? Yeah. Anything else? I know there's something else. Yes. Wow. Very good. Wow. Richard's having problems with his back, so and he's been having problems with his back. He said earlier this week he couldn't hardly move at one point, so he's considering, finally taking up the doctor's advice on surgery. So, be in prayer for Richard too. Yes, ma'am. So, anything else? Okay. Who wants to open us in prayer? Volunteer. Go ahead, Andy. Okay, go ahead and turn to Genesis chapter 16. It's a great story. It's Abram and Sarai, and you guys know the story. They're old. I mean, they are old, and God promises that they're going to have a child, and they just think, okay, God, that's great, but we're too old for this. Even you, God, can't take care of this, so we're going to fix this ourselves. And Sarai she's barren up to this point, and that's their major reason. They obviously don't have any problem with whether Abraham can produce anything or not, because their solution involves him, but not her. So, with that title in mind, what if I make the wrong decision? Are you willing this morning to speak out and just talk about a bad decision that you've made in the past and why it was so bad? Have you made bad decisions in the past? Nobody by the way, can say marrying my present spouse. That'll get you in hot water. Yeah. Bad decisions? Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good save, because actually that's true. How many times have you just said, man, did I make a mistake? And it might not have been a mistake, but at least in the moment that you're going through those questions, it was like, wow, why am I doing this? I think he does. I think he does. Hold on to that. Hold on to that statement because we've got to ask that sort of question when it comes to Hagar. So yes, ma'am. And, well, it sounds like God needed to do his majority work, not on your husband, but on Mona. Yeah. So, anybody else? Bad decisions. I went to work one time for a company. I was just trying to fill a block. I was a salesman, and I could make a killing no matter where I went. And McDuff's was closing up. That's the place where I'd worked. I was number one in the nation for them. They all the management, every store across the country, came out at the same time that same Saturday morning, just before the stores were meant to open. They locked the doors or put up notices, tell the customers we're closed until further notice. And then we had a simulcast, and the headquarters people said, we're closing up McDuff. We're going to shut everybody down, and there's going to be a phase. It was just a whole plan. And this is how we're going to do it. And that was on a Saturday morning. In the midst of that, as soon as they started talking like that, I picked up the phone, called a friend, and had a job. I don't think I would do that again that way. I probably would have stayed with McDuff until they finally folded up, because the company I went to work for was not one I wanted to be associated with. And I was there for, I think, a year and a half. God still uses that. I wasn't happy, but I learned a lot about making decisions on the fly. Anybody else? I just exposed myself. Why can't you? Yes, sir. Yeah. 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 Anybody ever buy anything that you shouldn't have bought? And yeah, boy, it was a real big want, but then you got it, and it wasn't such a cool thing. Yeah. 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 So, how does God still manage to work through those things? Or rather than ask that question, because I think it's a little harder for us to answer it, isn't it amazing when you see how God uses those bad decisions in your life? Have you seen that? Or were you able to see it in the midst of the bad decision? You're too young to nod your head. Wait, there's so many bad decisions that are coming your way. Just you wait. See that old guy sitting next to your mom back there? He can tell you about the mistakes that are yet to happen. Yeah. Yeah, well, to him, it's old. He's younger than me. Well, ancient. But then I embrace it. I love it. So, yeah. So, yeah. So, um, so how have you seen God work in those situations? and again, hold on to that one too. So not only what Linda has said, but also what Tammy has said, because both of those play into this story. As we take and we look at Abram and Sarai and their decision making, you see God work even in their bad decisions. Maybe not the way you would think ideal would be, but in God's great plan, it does work out. So chapter 16, starting at verse 1. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian maidservant named Hagar. So she said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from having children. Go, sleep with my maidservant. Perhaps I can build a family through her." So here's our problem with reading some of these Bible stories, especially if you've been around church for a long time. I just wish every once in a while God would put somebody brand new in the church so you can get that perspective, because you can ask them questions that can't ask you guys. What's, just on the face of it, what's some of the bad thinking on her part? What could happen with her bad thinking? Yes, Jonathan. Well, she did. She blamed God when? Well, that might be good insight, but just from a practical point of view, ladies, you wives, now think about this. You say to your honey, you know, I know how much you want a kid. So my solution is, here's my maidservant. Yeah. Hey, no way. Really? I mean, why would she even consider it? We do have to kind of look at the cultural implications. Why did she even consider that was viable? Yeah. Well, that was really big. Did they have any problem with plural wives? No, they didn't. I mean, they did not have the issues that we do. One of the reasons we kind of think, what's going on in her head, is because we do have a problem with plural wives. They didn't. But what really could happen, having said that? Yes? Yeah. Well, I'll take it one step further. Remember, in that culture, the man was everything. The women really were property themselves. So even Sarai was a second-class citizen. The child was going to be Abraham's child under his household. She would have, if you think of pecking order, she would have a little bit of authority, because it would be it was her maidservant that she basically lent to Abram. Yeah, you were going to say something, Ed? Yeah. Yeah. Edge brings up another issue. Part of our problem is cultural too, and unfortunately, the culture for the last 150 years has really framed us. We now think of slavery as the big bad evil, and the truth is, there was a lot of good things that happened in slavery. It's too bad we're broadcasting this, because I'll never be able to be in politics now, because I just said something that's I'm going to get canceled. But truthfully, well, we forget states like Pennsylvania and Georgia. Guess what they were? They were slave states, and the slaves weren't from Africa or the Mediterranean. They were Irish. They were debtors. William Penn spent a lot of time in debtors' prison, And a lot of the people that came to Pennsylvania were debtors, and basically they're coming over what we would consider slaves, but the history books kind of get rewritten for a new narrative. And so that's what's going on. We kind of think slavery's bad. In those days, there were really big rules about slavery. Some were bad, but many were good. And a good benefit could come to it. It's so much so, what an interesting quirk in Jewish law is a slave, when being set free, could choose to be a slave for the rest of their lives, right? And what did they do? Yeah, they'd have to put their earlobe against the doorpost, and they'd stick an awl through it. Yeah. That was your sign. So all those quirky things you forget in the Bible, and that's really all these years of college have done for me, is give me a lot of trivia. But what's the real big issue? When we take and we look at Sarai and her saying that, when it comes down to just the emotions of two women, what really was the big evil that came up? Jealousy. Was that a bad decision waiting to happen? I mean, that was just a bad decision waiting to happen. They make the bad decision. She makes the bad decision. And what really, truly happened? Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to read as that goes. Yeah. Yeah, she did. So Abram agreed to what Sarai said. So after Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai and his wife took her Egyptian maidservant Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. He slept with Hagar, and she conceived. Notice what the text says. Who's got a different translation and it has another word for wife? Became his woman? Might be. Well, truly she becomes his wife. Hagar becomes that plural wife. She becomes his second wife. Could he possibly have had other wives? It's possible, not likely because there weren't any other children of it, but it's also possible just because the Bible leaves it out. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. So the problem just wasn't Sarai, it was also Hagar. Then Sarai said to Abram, "You are responsible for the wrong I am suffering." This is where I disagree with you, Jonathan, just a little bit, because her real big displeasure was with who? Well, Abram. This is your fault. How many of you have been on the wrong end of that? You are responsible for the wrong I am suffering. I put my servant in your arms, and now she knows she is pregnant. She despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me. So what happens now? Blame game, right? Do we do that as human beings? What happens when things don't go right? Yeah, we do that. Human beings, it's like an alarm goes off inside of all of us. Jim's blaming Linda right now. He's pointing fingers at her. Yeah. See, maybe those people weren't right telling you to stick around with them. I don't know. Yeah. So here's Sarai, and she's putting all the blame on him. Whose idea was it to begin with? Does the Bible record that Abram went to Sarai and says, you've got a maidservant. You can give her to me. It doesn't record that, does it? It says Sarai said, "Here's my maidservant. I'll give her to you to be your wife. You go and sleep with her. You go and have a child with her." This was her idea. Now what's she doing? Blame game. The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring. Verse 6. "Your servant is in your hands," Abram said. "Do with her whatever you think best." Then Sarai mistreated Hagar, so she fled from her. The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was a spring that is beside the road to Shur. And he said, "Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going?" "I'm running away from my mistress Sarai," she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her." The angel added, "I will so increase your descendants that they will be too numerous to count." So here's the big question. Back to Linda's statement. How did God work through this? What's surprising about God's actions with Hagar in the midst of this? He did. And who comes looking for who? Did Hagar go by the spring and did she just bow down and pray to God, send God? No, an angel of the Lord did what? Well, in the sense of what's going on there is he searched her out. He searched her out to go and find her. So God's angel purposely went after Hagar. And then what's God's surprising appeal to Hagar? Well, but the surprising part. So that's surprising in one way, but what's surprising as far as asking much of her? Yeah, go back and submit. How hard, for those of you, only the strong-willed ones in the room can raise their hand on this one. How many of you would struggle with that sort of appeal from God? Submit? Ain't no way, right? Ain't no way. And then now to his promise. So now, had God made a promise already to Abraham? Okay, and what was the promise? And it's specifically the same sort of promise. Make a great nation out of him, but more specifically, for what purpose? God's purpose. What was that? No, it's a little bit more than that. It was a specific purpose. Not only that there would be a great nation, not only that there would be many of them, but something more important to the blessing. Because God's got a long-range plan. Yes. So it was, you will be a blessing to all other nations. We forget that sometimes, that God talked like that. As we go back and we read the Old Testament, one of the things that's really interesting is God didn't just bless that superficial, hey, here's the appeal to you, you're going to be a great nation. But it was more, but I've got a plan going on. And my plan is, you will be a blessing to all nations. For through them, through your children, through a specific child, there's going to be a blessing for all nations. What's that? Good. Very good point. So, which is really where I was going, because you take and you look at the nature of the two promises, through both children, he promises great nation, many numbers, right? That's God's specific purpose. But through his nation, Israel, is this specific blessing for all nations. Why is that distinction important? Because, yeah. Well, because of Jesus, but I also, but for, I think there's a bigger question to ask in the midst of God's prophecies. And I think we sometimes miss it. Because we have to remember something. God is speaking, he's trying to get the attention of all of us, and we live in darkness. We operate in darkness. I've used the analogy before that we're kind of like children who get captured by someone else. We're raised on this island. We grow up speaking a language totally foreign to the one God speaks. And then when we come back to God, we have to learn a whole new language, whole new culture, whole new everything. So God's trying to get pierced through our darkness. And sometimes some of the clues that he leaves are really important because he really wants to show us something about himself. We're going to capture a little bit of that in the sermon this morning when we talk about Christmas. Because here's God, and he's trying to point out that he really does have a plan throughout all of this. So why is it specific? Why didn't he just have a blessing through any child that Abraham had? So why didn't he just shift his plan a little bit and make it through Ishmael rather? Yes, go ahead. Welcome to the heady world. This is what happens. This is what happens when you go to seminary. So I still remember those early days, 1970s, in Berkshire Christian College in Lenox, Massachusetts, and we're having this big discussion about predestination and history and God making choices. So the predestinationist is going to take and say it's set in place, you can't deviate from it. The non-predestinationist is going to say, well, God makes choices, but. And I love this one great quote. I forget, I'm trying to remember now who said it. Might have been Lewis. But he was talking about history being like a tapestry. You go into a great manor, you go into a great English manor, and there's this huge wall tapestry, just covers the whole wall. And you think of all the strands in that, about all the decisions that humanity makes. And God's will, God's choice, is the golden thread running through that tapestry. Here comes the big question. Can it be deviated from? Well, how can you deviate from God? Is it set in place? Is it predestination and you don't have any choice? Some people say that. Others say, no, you still have a choice, but God still gets what he wants. What if you're God and you work beyond time? And there is no such thing as time for God. And you really take this idea that a day is like 1,000 years is like a day to God. What if none of that, the way of thinking of that is it's meaningless? And here's God trying to communicate to us, and we're finite, and we're just very, very dark in our understanding. And God is trying to just show throughout this. I've been talking to you guys since the beginning and telling you I want to rescue you. And there's a plan, and you can see my hand at work through all these people and all these events. Even Hagar. Here she is. She's afflicted, but I'm going to show my will through her. Abram is going to bear many children. They're going to be a mighty nation, but that wasn't my plan. Here is my plan. And it's a specific people. I've already carved them out. I've already promised them hundreds of years before. He had already promised all of this was going to take place. And God's just rolling out his plan. And here's the amazing thing about us and our decision making. This is why I keep emphasizing we have to admit that God is smart, really mega super smart. And we are arrogant to think we can even get close to him in our intelligence. I mean, we're made in his image. But the truth is, no matter what, he has outthought us. He's there before us. He's there after us. He knows the number of hairs on every head, Psalm 139. I mean, he knows everything. You cannot outclass God. So what's left for you? I actually think it's right there in those words from the angel to Hagar. Submit. Our job as human beings is to submit. By the way, so far, had Abram and Sarai done that? Which is part of the problem. How did it get messed up? And look at the story this way, too. So through Ishmael rises up a great nation, but what did they end up being as far as those nations that came out of Ishmael? What did they, huh? They were a thorn. So what's that say about human beings in our decision making? We mess up a lot of things, don't we? Was this a bad decision? Yeah, it was a really, really bad decision. Does God show his magnificence and his intelligence and just his ability to say, no, that's not what my plan was? We'll talk a little bit, Isaiah 53:5 this morning. That'll be our communion meditation. But I really will, as we get through the sermon, I'm really going to emphasize that right from the beginning, right from Genesis, the very first prophecy about Jesus is right after our sin. And here's a God who is so crazy in love with us. He says, to paraphrase it, basically, yeah, you guys messed up, but I'm going to come and rescue you. I'm going to redeem you. You know, he's trying to get through to us this whole time, and he's had a plan even before we sin. And here we are as human beings, and we're thinking we're pretty smart, don't we? How many of us think we're smart? Yeah, a lot of us think we're smart, but are you as smart as God? No. So verse 9. Then the angel of the Lord told her, go back to your mistress and submit to her. The angel added, I will so increase your descendants that they will be too numerous to count. What's interesting about that statement? Who says it? The angel. So, is the angel going to increase her numbers or what? You're with her? Yeah. No, I'm with you too. Particularly when the three men come to Abram and Sarai and about ready to go to Sodom, and you take and you look at those moments. Remember, angel, particularly in the Greek, means messenger. So this is a messenger for God. So I think it does fit that we think of that as God is the one who increases their number. God is the one who does the blessing. It's the voice that's just really being God's voice right then. And that's the messenger. And sometimes in the Old Testament, guess who it happened to be? Jesus. Really cool, isn't it? The angel of the Lord also said to her, you are now with child, and you will have a son. You shall name him Ishmael. For the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. Now here's talk about human arrogance. We're trying to solve, this is the Middle East. For thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years, humanity has been just what is described right there in those verses. And we still have the arrogance to go over there and think we're going to fix things. Talk about stupid. Personally, I think we've been stupid about thinking we could fix anything over there. Because you have heard of thousands upon thousands, millions of these people that are like a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand will against him. And he will live in hostility towards all his brothers. Does that sound like the Middle East? Yeah. She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. You are the one, or you are the God who sees me. For she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. That is why the well was called Bir Lahai-Roi. It is still there between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram gave this name Ishmael to the son he had born. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. Wow, what a story, right? What's that teach us about our decision making? Particularly when you take and you look at this from a historical perspective. Are we good at fixing anything? No. Human beings are awful arrogant if we think we're going to make something perfect. or we're going to perfect it, we're going to fix anything. Truth is, we can maybe do a good patch job, but God's the only one who can fix, right? Yeah. So what's that? Have you come to that realization in your own life, in your own decision making, and you've learned how to turn things over to God? Tell me about the stories where you've learned you're making different decisions now because you've basically turned those decisions over to God. Yes, ma'am. Somebody else? We've only got a couple of minutes, so yes. What I found, the concepts of submit really only do you really get it until you also learn the concept of trust. It's one thing to submit, and you can say you submit, and you can pray and all that stuff, but the truth is, the really hard decision in submitting to the Lord is trusting that He will really, truly take over. And for us, it's been in the area of finances. There's no way in heaven or in earth, I say that, and it's not true, that we could live the way we do now based upon my income now. The income before ministry, yes, all kinds of sense. But the income now, no way. What have I discovered? In a lot of ways, I'm really along for the ride, and God kind of takes care of everything. And so it is submitting, but it's learning how to trust Him. I can't tell you how our finances have continued to grow, but they do. And they shouldn't, but they do. And part of that is just learning how to trust. And guess when you learn that? And for all the people in here who have been there, you know, it's when you lose everything. What happens when you lose everything? You have to start all over again. What happens to you two? It's a whole new well, and you learn how to trust. Yes, sir. It is. Let's go ahead and pray. Father, we give you thanks for this day. Thank you for just bringing us this message. That, Father, we can learn a little bit more about ourselves, but more importantly, we learn a whole lot more about you. Forgive us, Father, when weak like Abram and Sarai and make decisions based upon fear and mistrust and just everything. Rather, Father, lift us up and honor us or bless us when we learn how to just let go and let you be in charge. Show us the rewards, the benefits of doing that. And we give you thanks in the midst of that for already answering that prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.